All right, everybody, welcome back to the Pirates Corner podcast, episode number 16. I'm here with Josh and also TK Troy once again. So today, I'm just going to go over some topics that we're going to talk about before we get into it. We're going to break down some of the transactions, including the coaching staff, the farm system. We're going to touch on a few things there, and then some predictions about the 2020 record, center field replacement, stuff like that, and also some non-roster invites. So Josh, it's been a little bit. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
How about you, Troy?
I'm doing really well. The last time we recorded, I know, was back in November, and baseball still felt kind of distant then. But even though there's still snow on the ground, I'm starting to feel like we're getting closer to baseball season. So definitely excited and doing well.
Monday is when pitchers and catchers report for the Pirates. And I believe it's Wednesday when they start working out. I will be leaving Saturday. I'm going to go down there for about 3 or 4 days. So Saturday to Wednesday, I'll be down there. I'm going to check out Pirate City for a while, see some full squad workouts. And I don't know, maybe go to the Phillies camp for a day.
Yeah, and after this podcast, we're actually getting out on the field to throw the baseball a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
At the Phillies camp, I kind of want to see guys like, Josh Harrison, Neil Walker, Liriano. I mean, Liriano we had last year, so it isn't really a guy who I'm itching to see. But guys like that, McCutchen, they have a lot of former Pirates, basically the whole 2013 team. So maybe they're trying to get a wild card spot this year.
They're really good at kind of signing players after they're washed up. Basically buying all the has-beens, seeing if that'll kind of bring the veteran glue that they need to get it going. But This is about the Pirates, so we'll get back on topic.
Yeah, so a couple things that I want to do during the 2020 season is, one, I want to maybe get our podcast on like Spotify, Apple, Google Play, stuff like that, just to kind of open up to a broader audience. If somebody's at work doing something, they can turn it on their phone, and then they could listen while they're doing something else. Right now, YouTube, you have to have a tab open to listen to it, which isn't a huge issue, because if somebody is on their computer doing something on there, they can listen to it. So I'm going to try to venture out and see how I get on those type of platforms, and then maybe a bi-weekly thing during the season. We get together and do a podcast. I mean,
yeah,
my microphone's mobile, so I could really go anywhere. Maybe do a podcast from PNC Park this year, who knows? But probably not.
Right now we're here at my house. So.
Yeah, we're at, what'd you call it? The
Casa de Ruga.
Yeah, Casa de Ruga. So that, and then I might want to put some different type of content onto the YouTube channel, maybe some MLB The Show, maybe some videos of prospects or some videos that I take from spring training, just getting a little bit of a preview, some exclusive stuff that I could throw on there. So let's get into some roster moves. The big one is Marte going to the D-backs for Peguero and Malone, two prospects who automatically get into the top 10, I believe. Yep, top 10 prospects there, back-to-back at 7 and 8. Peguero at 7, Malone at 8. And let's just start off talking about these guys. And I really like Peguero for sure. I mean, he's a high upside, extreme risk type of guy, according to Baseball America. But last year, what he did at, I believe it was short season A-ball and rookie ball, he split time between there, but hit over 300, a great defender, very quick. And then Malone, I believe he pitched at the rookie ball level last year. He was their first-round pick, a guy who the Pirates were thinking about taking with, I believe, their 17th pick or 18th pick last year. I forget.
And
then
that's who they ended up with.
Yeah, and then they picked Quinn Priester. We're looking at the top 30 right now. So this farm system has definitely gotten better over the last year, with guys like Priester getting drafted, Peguero and Malone getting traded for. Swaggerty had an okay year at Bradenton last year. Nothing 100% that would solidify him as the top outfield guy for the Pirates right now. He is listed as that, but there's some other guys. And, well, let's just talk about the Marte trade right now. I'll get into Aniel Cruz in the future in a little bit. But let's talk about Peguero and Malone. Who's your favorite guy out of the two?
Troy, you had an interesting take on these two guys. Go ahead.
I just know that the Pirates probably had the opportunity to go two ways with the Marte trade. They could go for the guys who were more major league ready, but probably had less upside, and then they could have went for the younger guys, which they opted to do, that had the more extreme upside, have the upside to be potential core players in the future instead of secondary pieces. I feel like the Pirates determined their direction a little bit with this move. They built the minor league system, and they're starting them at the lower levels, and now they'll have the chance to develop them the whole way up. I can't claim to know a ton about each individual guy at this point, having not seen them in a Bucco affiliate uniform yet, or having not really known about them much before the trade. But I think this helps determine the Pirates' direction, and I personally am fine with the fact that the Pirates went for the lower level guys. They're going to trust their minor league development, and they're going to trust that these guys can help them, even if it's 3 or 4 years into the future. That's tough for Pirate fans to wait that long, because as Pirate fans, we've done a lot of waiting for better days in the past, but I feel like I like this move. I'm good with it, and I'm on board with their thinking if the way I'm thinking falls in line with what the move represents to me.
Yeah, for sure. And something that Cherington did say is it's not a rebuild, it's a build. Yeah. So he has a group of players in his mind. He didn't come out publicly with them. The core players for the future and how to build off of that. So that's really something that I like to see out of Cherington, who has won a World Series before. So,
yeah, as far as my take on these two players, it's similar to the ideas that Troy just conveyed. But the way I look at it is there's a crop of prospects that's about to graduate, and the way I view these two, Liover Peguero and Brennan Malone, if they were 3 years down the road, they could be blue chip guys that would command like the best player in baseball in return for those two. Like, you would trade those two for Mike Trout. You would trade those two for, well, I'm not going to say Mookie Betts. We saw what he went for.
Well, actually, maybe not, because there's some holdups.
Yeah. So hopefully, for the Red Sox sake, there's that gets renegotiated. But that's the kind of pedigree these two guys have. They're both players that you would expect to be taken in the first round if they were to be redrafted. Brennan Malone actually was a first-round pick, and Peguero, he was taken out of Latin America.
Signed at 16 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was a big step forward for him, getting to play some short season ball with the Hillsboro Hops as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Usually they're down in the Dominican doing their stuff with their facility down there, but they liked him enough to move him up to the major league, or not the major leagues, but the major league direct affiliates rather than being in the Dominican.
Yeah, and that takes me to my point on Peguero. To this point in his career, he's displayed almost nothing in terms of red flags. Currently, his power grade is the only downside to him as a prospect.
Yeah.
But every other part of his game has shown elite promise. So defense, speed, his hitting ability, his glove, his throwing arm is phenomenal. Everything like that. He stole bases, and he was on a nice pace with the extra base hits. He's not hitting the ball over the fence, but at 6'1", he'll probably fill out to somewhere around 185, 190 pounds by the time he gets to the big leagues.
He's at 160 right now, 6'1",
Yeah.
160. So
he has a pretty significant frame. So having him hit for some power isn't out of the question. Right now it's at a 40 power grade, which is suggesting that his power is below average, but everything else is in the significantly above average grade range. As far as Brennan Malone goes, he's the same age as Peguero. He's got the same thing going on with his frame. He's not grown into his frame.
How tall is he?
He's 6'4", about 205.
Okay.
So if you think about
you were right, yeah, 6'4", 205.
His frame, he projects as one of those big ace type pitchers if he reaches that point. At this point in his career, his fastball is a little bit erratic, but he's still finding the zone with it at a pretty decent level. So there's a lot of development to go along with Malone, but his fastball is a weapon. It's sitting in the mid to upper 90s already, and his secondary pitches, every single secondary pitch has a grade of at least average or better, with the changeup being the lowest graded pitch. And that typically develops a little bit later because early on in the minors, you see guys like him that are facing a lot of right-handed batters. They're able to just carve up right-handed heavy lineups with a fastball, curveball, and slider. And so that changeup being average at this point is a good sign because it means it's a strong foundation for being able to get both left-handed and right-handed hitters out in the future when the time comes for that point in his development. So that's what all I have on those two guys. But I like the trade.
Yeah, I almost feel like some people were expecting a return like, we were trading a Mike Trout. I saw some people on Twitter who were like, we need Varsho, their top catching prospect or whatever. I like what they did here because getting two 18-year-old guys, they can come in and the Pirates can develop them to what they want them to be. Not necessarily a guy who's already been developed, but as it would have been nice to get a Varsho or a catching prospect, these guys can form to the way the Pirates want them to, which is pretty solid. So let's move on to some Major League signings. We had 3 of them so far. Catcher Luke Maile, who's a king in the field. Shortstop and center fielder JT Riddle, who,
there's upside
has not
there.
hit, but he does have upside, yeah.
Yes.
And
upside.
also outfielder Guillermo Heredia.
Guillermo,
okay. So, a guy like Maile might be the backup catcher depending on what type of competition he has with Stallings. It doesn't look like the Pirates are going to go after any more catchers up to this point. They signed some non-roster invites. But right now, it looks like it's going to be Stallings and Maile working at the catcher position during the regular season. But maybe a guy like John Ryan Murphy or Andrew
the third
Susac.
clone.
Yeah.
John Ryan Murphy.
Yeah. Comes in and could be a contributor at the big league level. So, Troy, I'm going to ask you this first. Out of the 3, who's your favorite?
I think JT Riddle is the most interesting, just because at one point he had a little bit more pedigree than the other 2. There were a few scouts out there who had him as a guy that would put up major league numbers that could keep him in a starting 9, maybe 5 out of 7 games, as a guy who could maybe hit 20 home runs or drive in 60 runs while hitting, 270 or 280 as a major league contributor. And to this point in his major league career, he just hasn't lived up to it. But I think of that group of 3, none of them super exciting and not top shelf guys. But I think, like I said, Riddle is definitely the most interesting to me.
Yeah. Who do you like the most?
Well, of those 3 free agent signings, definitely Riddle, because he defends both premier positions up the middle, center field, and shortstop. But I have a question for you, Troy. Say the catcher battle comes down to Maile, Stallings, and John Ryan Murphy. Who is your favorite to win that?
Oh, I would say Jacob Stallings. I thought from what we saw last season from Stallings, his at-bats were major league at-bats for a guy who was not really expected to provide those kind of at-bats. I thought he looked locked in at the plate. He has very, very limited power, especially home run power, but I thought he was giving major league quality at-bats. And then as far as Luke, I've seen the advanced metrics as far as framing pitches go, and he is one of the elite guys in all of baseball when it comes to that. And I think that's why the Pirates kind of brought him in there at the small price contract for a guy who does one thing extremely well. A lot of times when you're paying a guy that small salary, you're paying for them to do one thing really well, and his thing is definitely pitch framing from the metrics that I've been able to look at.
Yeah, and if you can pass any of that along to, if there's dialogue on pitch framing in the group of those 3 catchers, there's something to be had of value from the perspective of John Ryan Murphy and Jacob Stallings. With the hope that Jacob Stallings picks up on it, he was the best pitch framer of the Pirates' mediocre group of catchers that they had last season. But he has room to improve in that area as well.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if either of you guys follow Michael McHenry on Twitter, but he was posting some videos of Stallings and his pitch framing, and I mean, it was looking really well. Stallings is a definite solid player at the big league level. Last year, when we still had guys like Diaz and Cervelli, I said on multiple podcasts that Stallings is like a cookie-cutter backup catcher. Mm-hmm. He did a lot of things decently well, like his defense, and he could hit for average a little bit. I believe he hit like 260 last year. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to have to look at his on-base percentage as well, but like Troy said, definitely a lot of major league at-bats coming out of Jacob Stallings.
Yeah, he's not a young player. He's going to be 30 this season, but
yeah, so he hit 262 with the average and then 325 in OBP with 6 homers and 13 RBIs. So he did okay last year, but that was also some limited at-bats behind Diaz.
It was almost 200 at-bats, so
yeah.
It's a nice sample. It's a decent showing for a guy who's a good catcher. If he were to replicate that in a slightly larger sample this year with Melee and John Ryan Murphy in the mix, you can get by. And like if the team's a surprise contender, then you're probably addressing catcher at the deadline, unless those guys are all, whoever's being called upon is doing their job to the fullest. So
later in the year, we'll talk about the draft. I actually just wrote an article on some draft guys who I like, but no question, catcher in the organization has to improve. It just has to improve. The best defensive catcher, according to Baseball America, is Christian Kelly. He's 26. He's coming in. Probably won't even start at AAA because they signed guys like John Ryan Murphy and Andrew Susac. And if neither of them make the team, I mean, there's 4 catchers right now that could start at the AAA level. So Kelly being the best defensive catcher in the organization and nobody really after him, definite need there for the organization. Possibly
Deion
a draft
Stafford
pick.
is,
Yeah, Deion Stafford's the top guy
prospect.
there. Yeah.
But he really hasn't shown much in the way of really solidifying his defensive game. There's still plenty of development time for Stafford, but to have only one guy noteworthy at, like, Deion Stafford isn't that good of a catching prospect overall unless he breaks out with the bat. Like,
did he used to be in the top 30?
He may have been briefly.
I think he was.
I believe at one point he was in the top 30. And just as far as Christian Kelly, I've gotten to watch him play a fair amount of times throughout his minor league career. His defense is really good. The bat doesn't
Not
really
so
play
much.
so much.
No, yeah. And he's 26 as well, so
Right.
it's not like he's a big prospect who can improve the bat over the years. He's already kind of, at 26 years old, you should be in the big league level for an average player.
So do we want to touch on Socrates Brito or?
Well, first I'll read all the non-roster invites. So we have John Ryan Murphy and Andrew Susac, the 2 catchers that we were talking about. Derek Holland and Robbie Erlin, a pair of left-handed pitchers. Infielder Phillip Evans, outfielder Socrates Brito, and another outfielder Charlie Tilson. So out of those guys, I really like Brito at AAA though.
Yeah.
In the big league level, he hasn't really shown too much, but at AAA, I believe he had over 100 RBIs last season. I'll look, but yeah, he's pretty solid.
Yeah, he's hit in the minors, and he's 27 years old, so he's kind of got to put it together.
Yeah.
In the big leagues to really turn the corner and carve out a big league career for himself, but. There's still some upside there. It's similar to the situation with JT Riddle. There's upside there because these guys have talent but for whatever reason they haven't put it together
Yeah.
at the big league level. So having two of those guys is better than not having either one, because
Yeah.
but expecting one of them to contribute is probably you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, and real quick, I was mistaken. He only had 67 RBIs with 16 home runs last year. Does Riddle have any options left?
I believe that's why the Marlins let him go.
Okay.
Because he doesn't have options. But his defensive versatility makes him a great candidate to make the Pirates bench.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Yeah, I think that JT Riddle is out of options.
Yeah.
I expect him, with setting aside the possibility that he could have a miserable spring training, kind of like Andrew Lambeau a few years ago. I don't see JT Riddle not coming north with the team in April. So
Yeah,
for sure. Later in the podcast, we're going to talk about one non-roster invite that we have making the big league roster. But for now, we're going to move on to the coaches. So, last podcast, we were talking about basically predictions about the coaching staff. So, one, our guy Derek Shelton got hired. Don Kelly's the bench coach. Mike Rabello is the assistant hitting coach. Oscar Marin is the pitching coach. Tariq Brock is the new first base coach. And then Glenn Sherlock, who I've heard is a great baseball mind, is now just a coach, just a major league coach to help out. So, a pretty solid lineup. I mean, Don Kelly was talked about as possibly being the manager.
yeah.
And now we get both of those type of guys. So, I really like what we got going here. Oscar Marin, I don't know too much about him other than he was in Texas. But, I mean, right now this coaching staff, guys like Tariq Brock and Glenn Sherlock, I've heard are very good baseball minds. And, I mean, Mike Rabello coming in as the assistant hitting coach, I hope that Eckstein had a say in that, because in my opinion, the only way that it would work to be a successful team was if Eckstein picked his assistant, in my mind.
Yeah, basically to continue to build on whatever progress they made last year. To finish up last year, there was hardly the team on the field that we expect to see opening day. Like Josh Bell got shut down. A couple of other guys got shut down. But Starling Marte is now gone, so he's removed from that picture. But there was a decent amount of young guys on the field to finish up last year. And you're going to see Eckstein and what's the assistant hitting coach?
Mike Rabello.
Mike Rabello working with a largely new group of players that are expected to move in and out of the starting lineup this year, with a few of those being prospects that are going to start the year at AAA, but we expect to get to the big leagues at some point mid-season.
Yeah. Anything on the new coaches, Troy?
yeah, absolutely. Mike Rabello managed an Erie team in the Eastern League in AA last year that had really a lot of great pitching prospects, guys like Matt Manning, Casey Mize, Alex Vallejo, a team that really had a lot of frustrated and guys who are getting older prospects as far as hitters. So for him to come on board with the Pirates, get to work alongside Eckstein, and get to work with guys like Josh Bell, Gregory Polanco, and then the younger crop of players that are coming through should be refreshing for him compared to the offense he had last year on that AA ball club. And then Don Kelly's the guy who's qualified to be a major league manager today. Derek Shelton said in an interview that he's going to run the day-to-day operations in the spring. That being Don Kelly, he's going to run those things, the drills, the workouts, and things like that. So it's obvious that there's a trust there that's already built between Derek Shelton and Don Kelly, and I think that trust is deserved. Like I said, I think that Kelly is already qualified to be a big league manager, and if he has the kind of success in Pittsburgh that we're hoping he has as a bench coach, unfortunately he might not be in Pittsburgh that long, but we'll see as we go forward how that works out.
Yeah, but Troy, Scott Rickenbach didn't want any Yinzers on the coaching staff.
Oh yeah, I think the fact that Don Kelly is from Pittsburgh should only be a good thing, because anything to connect this ball club with the fans in a time where they're going through the building process back up to being a wild card division contender. I think him coming back to Pittsburgh, jumping on board, I think that strikes home a little bit with the fans a little bit, especially a certain group of fans who tends to root for the hometown guy. If you're not rooting for the hometown guy, I feel like that's a little crazy. Everyone should want the guy that grew up in the same area that you did to have success. I mean, unless you're just plain old stubborn, I guess, which maybe that's the case in Scott's case. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. So, moving along here, we're going to take a look at the prospects here down on the farm. Ryan has the top 10 list from Baseball America.
So a new segment that we're going to be doing is highlighting the farm system, some things that are going on down there. So down on the farm, it's just going to be talking about the system, top prospects, breakout players, stuff like that.
And we need to talk about the rookie symposium, or
yeah, we have that on here.
Yeah.
So the Baseball America top 10 Pirates prospects were released a couple weeks ago. At number 1, we have Mitch Keller. Number 2, Brian Hayes. Number 3, Aniel Cruz. Number 4, Liover Peguero. Number 5, Cody Bolton. Number 6, Tanaj Thomas. Number 7, Quinn Priester. Number 8, Brennan Malone. Number 9, Hee-Wan Bae. And number 10, Sammy Siani. A pretty solid group of guys, in my opinion.
Yeah. The interesting name that I see on that list, Liover Peguero, is pretty much where I would rank him, where my disagreement with Prospect Watch from MLB.com would be. I would rank him higher than they have him, and somewhat in line with number 4 here that Baseball America has. But number 5, Cody Bolton. This kid, he isn't known for having flashy stuff, but his stuff has improved to the point where the command and finesse that he brings to the table is really getting him some recognition. Troy, you saw Cody Bolton pitch some last year, correct?
Yes, correct, yeah.
Do you have... Yeah, go ahead.
I would just add to that, Cody Bolton is kind of the traditional old-school pitching prospect, kind of the type of guy the Pirates were going after for a while. The big right-hander. He has the frame. He doesn't have the flashy stuff, but he's improved his command. And I'm really kind of interested just to see more of him. I expect him to start in Double-A again. And I feel like if he can come out in April, May, June, and replicate his success that got him that bump up to Double-A later in the season last year, I feel like that would be a huge positive for the Pirates, and that would really tell me that they have a guy who could be a future contributor at the big league level. Just want to kind of see him carry it over into a new calendar year, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure. One guy I like on this list is Tanaj Thomas. He's a prospect that we got in the Eric Gonzalez trade. I know that Josh likes him too.
Yep.
This guy, if he doesn't turn out to be a starter, this guy might be the next Pirates closer. I mean, you've seen some things online. Baseball America ranks it as a future Pirates closer in their scouting report. The guy's stuff is nasty. So, like I said, if he's a starter or not, definitely a very nice prospect for the Pirates, for sure.
He's bringing that fastball downhill with some serious heat on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Generating Ks that are fastball fueled.
Yes. Any more things that we want to touch on with the top 10 prospects?
I'm just curious for you guys, maybe who is someone outside that top 10, maybe just outside, or maybe outside the top 30 altogether, if you look at the MLB rankings, who you guys think might either emerge into those top prospects when they come out again in May or June, or someone who you just think will come out hot in the spring and maybe take a big step forward, if you guys had anyone in mind there.
Yeah, that kind of brings us to the one breakout candidate for each of us. But that kind of narrows it down to the minor leagues. My guy in particular is number 13 prospect on the Prospect Watch, Jared Oliva. And where I have him breaking out is potentially in the big league level, at the big league level, and taking over center field for the Pirates at some point midsummer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know he played really good defense and he covers ground in center field. If that bat comes around to the point where he's a threat to hit 15 to 20 home runs in the big leagues, drive in some runs and get on base, I like the future. I like the future for him. I think he's a good athlete. Like I said, he covers a lot of ground in center field. I think his major league future would be him either starting in center field or at least filling in there whenever he's in the lineup.
Yeah, for sure.
The guy that Ryan has is your buddy.
We saw him play some last year. Hopefully he's jumping between Double-A and Single-A this year, and that's Mason Martin. The guy hit 35 home runs and 129 RBIs, splitting between High A and Low A last year. This guy could be the future at first base. He's 20, and usually 20-year-olds are still working with rookie ball, short season, stuff like that. This guy has already reached the High A level. I'm really excited for this guy. If Josh Bell ends up getting traded in the next couple years, Mason Martin, for me, is the next Pirates first baseman for sure. And
Troy, who did you have?
Yeah, Troy, who did you have?
Let me go way off the board here. I'll go with Nick Mears. He's a 23-year-old pitcher from California. He's 6'3", 215. He's a big guy. He's going to be one of the Pirates' non-roster invites to his first big league spring training this year. The guy profiles as a relief pitcher. Last year, he started in Greensboro, finished the year in a really small sample with Double-A Altoona. He was a guy that had more strikeouts than innings pitched. His ERA was low. The whip was low. Another guy where you can just say, I'm looking forward to seeing more from him, but I wouldn't be surprised if fairly quickly he's a piece in the Pirates bullpen, and more than likely the back end of that bullpen. And I would just say similarly to what I said a little bit earlier, I hope that he is a guy who comes out after his showing in the Arizona Fall League and just carries it over into a new calendar year. So we'll see what happens with him.
Yep.
Similar to what we expect from Blake Cederlind.
Absolutely. Cederlind throws a lot harder. He's hitting 101, depending on the gun, 98, but he's sitting in the high 90s. He can put the fastball past some talented hitting prospects, so definitely like Cederlind as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of ties into our next topic here, which is one breakout candidate for each of us. This could be an MLB player, a low-A player in my case, or a triple-A player like Josh. So I'll let Josh start with his guy, JT Brubaker.
Yeah. So I kind of see JT Brubaker being the guy who breaks out and takes it to a whole nother level this year. And I think this is the year that he kind of arrives in the big league rotation and becomes kind of a fixture like we saw from Trevor Williams over the past 3 years. Trevor Williams is now a household name in the Pirates rotation because of what he did. And I believe that Brubaker, being a big frame pitcher who's a little bit taller, throws a little bit harder than Trevor Williams, he has an even better shot to take that to a whole different level. And this guy's been a favorite of mine for probably 3 years now.
You've been talking about him for a while, for sure.
Yeah. So.
All right. Let's move on to my guy, which is Santiago Flores. Now, we were down at spring training last year, and we saw this guy walking around with similar hair to yours, Troy.
We thought it might have been you.
Yeah, we thought it was you in a Pirate uniform.
Okay.
Yeah, but we were thinking that this guy was just like, a drafty, a white guy, just an American player, maybe just trying to get a roster spot in spring training. This guy's from Colombia, and he's 19, and he's a very promising player for the Pirates. So, he's 6'5", 222 pounds. He started in 2017. Yeah, just a little bit. So he started in 2017. He started 14 games with a 4.56 ERA. He's kind of getting used to pro ball a little bit, but since then, he's done pretty good. So in 2018, he was with GCL, started 10 games at a 4.15 ERA with a whip at 138. And also, he held opposing hitters to a 230 average in 2018 in 43 innings. Another point that I want to touch on is, in all 3 of his years, he's held his opponents to an average of 225, which is pretty good for a pitcher who's only 19 years old. Last year, he was at Bristol. 10 games again, 3.46 ERA, and he had a shutout as part of those 10 games started. He pitched in 41 2/3 innings, and in my opinion, this guy could be the next thing that Pirates fans are talking about. You know, we were kind of studying his stuff last year after we saw him in spring training, but definitely a promising player for the Pirates. You got anything on him, Josh?
Yes. He's 19, so he's got to clean up that walk rate a little bit.
Yeah.
But the strikeout rate's starting to climb, and definitely a player to watch for 2020. And when does he's going to turn 20 this year, so that's kind of the year that you expect him to turn the corner and take it to a different
For
level.
sure, yeah. All right, Troy, let's move on to you.
Okay, so just a little bit earlier, I went off the board for Nick Mears, a guy that a lot of people probably haven't even heard of. But I'm going to make this one a couple names that I think we all know and we all know a fair amount about, and anyone listening probably knows a fair amount about them by now as well. Mitch Keller, Cole Tucker, and Will Craig. Guys who I feel like need to be part of the Pirates' future if the Pirates' future is going to be bright like we all hope it is. Those are guys who have the first-round pedigree, especially Mitch Keller in the Pirates' rotation, that could help the Pirates right away. If it clicks for Mitch Keller, he can be special. I know what the numbers said last year. I know the numbers when he came up weren't good, but I feel like that's kind of just a stepping stone. He got his feet wet in the major leagues on a team that wasn't exactly winning 100 games in the first place. I feel like he's going to get better. I feel like it's going to click. Josh mentioned how it just clicked for Trevor Williams. I feel like it's going to click for Mitch Keller. And with his talent, I think he can be special for the Pirates for a long time. I'm going to go ahead and take the risk of saying that, but I still like Mitch Keller a lot. And then Cole Tucker's defense, I feel like just makes him the profile shortstop of the future for the Pirates, at least until Peguero gets up there. But I feel like if his bat comes around, he can be a part of the Pirates' core. Again, he's a guy that the Pirates have control of for at least the next 5 years. I feel like he needs to break through. And then Will Craig now, 2018 and 2019, I believe, 20-plus home runs and at least 80 RBIs in the minor leagues. He's hitting for a little bit of average, and sometimes his swing can be home run or strikeout kind of tendencies there. But I feel like with that pedigree, those are the kind of guys that the Pirates need to break through. It's always nice to throw out the name like Nick Mears, who might be an up-and-coming guy to watch, but those first-round picks, got to keep developing them. They're all still young, and I'm just really hoping they're big parts of the Pirates' future.
Yeah, good stuff, Troy.
All right, so let's talk about the rookie seminar that the Pirates sent some players to. Josh, you know the list. I kind of forget. I know there were a few guys.
So, Will Craig, Brian Hayes, both guys that we have expectations of seeing in the big leagues. Brian Hayes, we expect to be the starter at third base, maybe June 1st, if things go according to plan. And now here's a surprising name on the list, and that is Aniel Cruz.
Yeah.
Aniel Cruz was sent to this. Aniel Cruz didn't really master the AA level last year, but this tells you that Ben Cherington sees him as a candidate to make the major league level at some point this year. And Cherington sees him as a shortstop. So we'll see what happens with that. I could see a situation where he moves all over the field. Spells.
I would almost like him in right field. I mean, maybe. But with his height and his power bat, that could be a spot
His
for
throwing arm.
His throwing arm.
What about left field?
Maybe left field too. Is he quick?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
He's very, very quick on his feet. And then the last player on this list is Blake Cederlin, who we had mentioned briefly. Just a phenomenal arm talent there. Potential back end of the bullpen. Hitting in the upper 90s on the radar gun pretty consistently. And as Troy said, some of the radar guns are showing 101 with Blake Cederlin. And if he could contribute and help solidify a very up-in-the-air bullpen that's kind of drawing from a lot of high-end talent, it'll be interesting to see what that does for the Pirates' chances this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Blake Cederlin will be he'll be in the mix. He'll be in the big leagues.
Yeah. Anything on that, Troy?
I want to just go back to Cruz for a minute. I know the guys who get sent to that symposium, it usually, if you read the tea leaves, it basically means they're close to the big leagues. I also think in Cruz's case, I'm kind of, again, like I said, reading the tea leaves, and I don't want to make a statement that's out of line, but I feel like maybe the guy has a little bit of maturing to do away from the field, and I more so mean that like his approach to coming into a day at the ball field, like maybe just a little bit more mature approach, and maybe he can grow off the field, and that can help him be more successful as a player. Again, I don't mean that as a controversial statement. I just mean maybe he needs to mature a little bit. He's definitely still a young guy with a ton of talent, so hopefully that maturity process is ongoing for him.
An interesting direction that you took that in, but very, very valid point you made there, Troy. So we'll see what happens, and it'll be interesting to see, because that is my pick actually for the prospect of all of the Pirates' current prospects that I would rank as the highest potential to reach superstardom.
Yeah.
Ryan, as far as this goes, who on this top 30 list would you rank as the highest upside, highest chance to reach superstardom?
Superstardom, I'm going to have to go with either Hayes or Cruz. Probably Cruz because of what we've seen him do. I think that Hayes is going to be good as well. But one guy who
Very safe.
Yeah, for sure. But one guy I did want to talk about is Will Craig. He got gypped for a 40-man roster call-up last year, but he definitely hit the way that we would like him to. He got some time in right field. We know that he can play third base and first base. So maybe later in the season, May, June, maybe even July, he gets called up and makes his MLB debut. If somebody on the bench gets hurt, or if the Pirates are in need of another bat to produce some offense. So,
Troy.
Yeah.
Who would be your pick of the MLB Prospect Watch top 30? Anyone on that list to be?
Ke'Bryan Hayes. That's a pretty easy choice for me. Don't really have to think about that one. Don't really have a ton of insight to give or expound on that right away, but when you watch him play, I think you'll see the potential. If you haven't seen him play already, do yourself a favor and watch him play, and I think you're going to get the chance to watch him play at PNC Park sometime around June or July, and I think that could bring a lot of excitement to what might be a tough year for the Pirates, but I think he's going to come up, and it's going to be like when Andrew McCutchen came up. You're going to feel the palpable buzz that this guy is part of the future, and I think if the bat doesn't play right away, people are still going to be encouraged by the defense because it's elite level defense. It's Nolan Arenado stuff, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We'll let it play out on the field for a while, and maybe just remember that I said that he has Nolan Arenado level defense just in case he happens to win 5 or 6 Gold Gloves. But that's all for
Matt Chapman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say his defense is as good as Matt Chapman as well. I feel like it just looks so smooth. Every time he fields the ball, it looks like if you were teaching your kids in the future how to field a baseball, you would just show them a videotape or a YouTube clip of Brian Hayes and be like, okay, this
Go do
guy's
it.
doing it the fundamental way, and he's doing it at a very high level.
Yep.
Good stuff, Troy.
All right, so for our last segment today on the podcast, we're going to do some predictions. 3 predictions for each of us. Center field replacement, 2020 record, and 1 non-roster invite that makes the opening day roster. So let's start with the center field replacement, and I'll go ahead and start. Mine is Kevin Pillar. During the whole offseason, the Pirates have been linked to Kevin Pillar. I'm not saying that this is the best option. I would like to see a guy like Jason Martin move into that spot and succeed. But Kevin Pillar, for me, is the guy who the Pirates will probably go with. He has some decent defense. He's been better in the past, but his defense is still very solid. He hits for average. His one real concern for me is he does not get on base. His on-base percentage is under 300 consistently for his career, and that's
He doesn't
one.
walk.
Yeah, he just does not walk. What he does well, I believe he hit like 16 to 20 home runs last year. Let me look that up real quick.
He may have hit 25.
Yeah, maybe. He did show some flashes of power, so maybe Pillar can come in for a couple years and kind of hold that position down until the Pirates feel like one of the prospects is ready.
21.
21 home runs, 88 RBIs. He had a 259 average with a 287 on-base percentage. That on-base percentage is pretty concerning, but if the Pirates bring him on, I mean, a 2-year, maybe $6 million total, it could be a decent bat for the Pirates and definitely an okay defender in center field.
He's a really good defender in center
Yeah.
field.
All right, so our next guy, I just touched on him, but Josh, Jason Martin is your guy.
Yeah, so I have Jason Martin, and this could go one of two ways. I just like Jason Martin as a player, and I could see him taking over left field and moving Brian Reynolds into center field, where Reynolds played pretty well last year when called upon to do so in the absence of Starling Marte, or Jason Martin himself taking over center field.
Yeah.
I saw him. He works there every single day in spring training, and I kind of made friends with him by talking to him. And complimenting his defense.
We
and his
consistently
efforts
saw Jason during our trip last year. Actually, the one time we were at Pirate City, we said what's up to him. The next day, he had an absolute bomb versus the Phillies, and then we were kind of shouting him out for the rest of the week that we were there. So, Jason Martin, definitely a solid pick. Troy, we'll move on to you.
Okay, I don't know that the Pirates have a great option in center field that would start there if the season started tomorrow. So I would take a chance with a guy like Cameron Maven for 4 months. If you have to trade him at the July deadline, then you trade him. But playing part-time last year, he was a guy who had a 1.5 wins above replacement total. I feel like that's pretty solid. I feel like he's a solid major league veteran at this point. He's pretty stable. You kind of know what he brings. Nothing is really above average at this point, but he's a veteran, a guy I would take a chance on for 1 year. Might end up being 4 months if you trade him in July, but he's also not going to command a huge amount of money in a contract or anything like that. So that's the guy I would go with.
Definitely a very solid pick. Anything else in center field, guys?
Nah.
Okay, so let's move on to the Pirates' 2020 record. A lot of people have them with a losing season. I'm okay with that. But I'm going to shoot a little bit higher. I think that some players are going to break out. Some players are going to stay consistent, like Kevin Newman and Brian Reynolds. So I'm going to go with 82 and 82. Just a solid record. Maybe they shoot below.
That would be 81 and 81.
Yes, 81 and 81. Maybe I was counting the 2 playoff games that they were going to get in, but no, I'm kidding. 81 and 81. They could do a lot of things this year. They can move in a lot of different directions. I just don't really think that they're going to have a winning record, but I believe that they will do okay this year. Definitely not lose 100 games. And Troy, I know that we talked about this. We'll move on to your prediction right after this, but we talked about this on Facebook a little bit. We both don't think that they will lose 100 games, and I believe it was USA Today's predictions that had them with the worst record in the National League. I just don't think that that's valid. So let's move on to your prediction, Troy.
Oh, the USA Today prediction was just an overreaction to last year. The Pirates I was not optimistic I'll be clear about this, about the Pirates going into last season. Some people had the Pirates winning in the mid-high 80s or even like 90 games.
That was me.
I had the Pirates more as like an 80 to 82 win team last year, but now this 60 win prediction from an outlet like USA Today that a lot of people are going to see, I think it's just an overreaction because of the injuries. I feel like the Pirates pitching staff is going to be okay this year. You take away an ace like Tyon, and you still have guys like Trevor Williams, Joe Musgrove. My hope is Mitch Keller. I feel like those guys are going to hold it down in the rotation and be okay. And I feel like the Pirates have a big league bullpen. I don't really see the Pirates bullpen as like a joke. I know we have Vasquez out of there now, and Crick coming back from his suspension and some problems in the clubhouse and stuff. But I like Kella, I like Crick, I like the other pieces. I feel like the Pirates pitching staff is just a little bit better than they're getting credit for. I have them right now. I had them as low as 70 wins in my mind and the way I was kind of looking at things. But I'm up to more like 74 wins now. I feel like as long as the Pirates don't literally trade everyone in July, that they're going to play hard. It's a young team. A lot of guys have a lot to prove. And I feel like the pitching staff, like I said, it's a little bit better than what they're getting credit for. So I'll go with the number of 74 wins right now.
All right, Josh.
My number is 78.5. That means I got them at either 78 or 79 wins. And the reasoning I have behind that is because Chris Archer cut his dreads. Last time that man pitched well, he had no dreads. So expect Chris Archer to do a little something this year.
Yeah, hopefully.
And contribute to the pitching staff. And if that gets him traded at the deadline for something of any significance, that's an asset. Because it helps the Pirates dig out of the hole that they dug themselves when they pulled the trigger on that trade for him and gave up 3 very valuable assets for Chris Archer. And then as far as what Troy was saying with the rest of the pitching staff, Trevor Williams is a solid, dependable starter. I expect him to not post an earned run average in the 5s. Low 4s, high 3s is reasonable. Same for Joe Musgrove, somewhere in that range. I would say I'm very much in line with Troy thinking that Mitch Keller is going to break out. And then I just hit on 4 of the 5 starters. And as far as the 5th starter, I've got some candidates. I've got JT Brubaker trying to sneak into that mix. I've got I like Stephen Brawl a little bit more than some people do. I like. Well, I'm not going to give away my next topic. Player, so.
All right. Yeah. So let's move on to that, and I'll let Josh start because myself and Troy both picked the same guy. So Josh, how about you go ahead and just continue on?
Yeah. So my non-roster invite that I have making the Big League Club this year is Derek Holland. Holland has been a little bit banged up over the past couple of years. I always liked him as a potential starter to come to Pittsburgh and make somewhat of an impact. I think as a lefty, he has a good fastball and a really good slider. He also throws a changeup, which helps him get right-handed batters out. But this guy, he was like kind of shut down and then eventually let go by San Francisco last year after really struggling. I think after kind of getting an early start on his offseason, and he's in the flow of things, and he's a great candidate to be a stopgap to bigger and better things for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I have him making the back end of the rotation, and if not, making an impact in the bullpen as a left-handed reliever. So
yeah,
you guys were thinking along the same lines,
definitely.
But you went with a different player.
And this is a guy who can double as a reliever or starter. He started in the past, and that's Robbie Erlin. Last year, he had a pretty tough year with a 5.37 ERA, but at only 29 and possibly moving into a reliever full-time role, he's definitely a guy who can work. he's never had an ERA below 4 in his career, but last season he pitched in 39 games, or 2018, sorry. In 2018 he pitched in 39 games, 12 starts, a 4.21 ERA. That could be something that we work with a team like the Pirates. First of all, he's a lefty, which the Pirates have needed. I think other than Steven Brault, who else was a lefty on the team last year? I mean,
they were very left-handed.
Yeah. So this guy could work as a reliever / starter, maybe make a spot starter or two during the season. Troy, I know that this was your pick as well, so what do you like about Robbie Erlin?
Oh, I just feel like you need a lefty in the bullpen. I feel like he's pretty ordinary. I'm not real excited about him, but I feel like he'll have an okay spring, and he'll be a guy who's a pretty good candidate to come north. I'll just mention 2 other things real quick. I know Dovidas Neverauskas is out of options, so if he has a good spring, the Pirates are going to look for a reason to keep him around for a little bit. So I wouldn't be shocked if, despite his struggles and small sample sizes, if he's on the big league roster. And another guy, I'll throw out this name real quick, just in case there's a couple injuries or just in case he has a good spring, Jake Elmore. He has a little bit of position flexibility. He has some experience in the big leagues. He was there with the Pirates at the end of last year. They thought just enough of him to bring him back for another spring. So he's just the second name I would throw out there. But yeah, as far as Erlin, nothing that really excites me a lot. In his time as a starter, he didn't really put up great numbers, but I think coming out of the bullpen, he could be a guy who could hold down a spot for the Pirates, mostly in the short term.
Yep. And we are all out of topics for today. Thank you all for listening. I know that we had a pretty productive episode. Expect us to be back probably, I would say, around maybe early to mid-March, just so we could cover the spring up to that point, and then definitely one before opening day, stuff like opening day roster, stuff like that. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you later.